It ends. Charlie Roumeliotis, a studio host for WGN Radio, joins us. The Oilers and Blackhawks doing a lot of business as of late. It might just be because Stan Bowman still has an old cell phone and he only has Blackhawks numbers saved. He's just calling people in the front office, Charlie, like, put me through to Kyle Davidson. I got to talk to him.
You know, it's funny because when I saw the Connor Murphy trade go down, my first thought was, man, they should have made it a package deal with Jason Dickinson because they're looking for a third line center. And Jason Dickinson is a guy that I thought could be a great fit for Edmonton. And then they circle back a couple days later. So how about that?
It's always funny how that works because you're right. Like, you're telling me 4 days ago, the Oilers were like, whoa, Jason, we're good on Dickinson at that price. And then a couple of days go by and they're like, shit, never mind, we'll do it. But let's start with Jason Dickinson. Give us your like baseline scouting report on him. What does he do well? What are maybe his weaknesses? How do you think he fits in as this third line center in Edmonton?
Yeah, he is a true third line center, shutdown guy, draws all the toughest competitions. You can even go back and look at some of the numbers. Anytime the Blackhawks faced the Edmonton Oilers, he would draw the Leon Draisaitl matchup or the Connor McDavid matchup. And if they were together, he would most definitely be on the ice when both of those guys were on. And there was a game a couple of years ago where Dickinson like shut down McDavid and Draisaitl, and he was just fantastic in that game. Like the numbers were so lopsided in favor of Chicago. Where I will say Dickinson, anytime he plays a little bit higher in the lineup, whether it's the having to slide in more of like a second line role, he hasn't necessarily thrived there. He's a guy that knows exactly what his role is, third line center. I imagine he's not going to be playing in the top six with Edmonton, so that shouldn't be an issue. And I think now that he has a stronger supporting cast around him, I believe he'll really do well with the Oilers in a third line center role. And he's a big reason why the Blackhawks have the top penalty kill in the NHL this season, because he's the first guy over the boards.
I think too, just with his addition and what you just described him as, I don't think the Oilers have had a third line center like that in the McDavid era. Like Boyd Gordon, that literally might be it, and he probably wasn't a third line center at the end of the day. But what did you make of the package that they got back? Obviously, we know Mangiapane is just kind of the dump in this. He did have 7 goals in what is viewed as a terrible season so far. But were you surprised by the first round pick in this too?
I was a little bit surprised, but then when you put it into context, I think it felt more like the Blackhawks needed to acquire the Mangiapane contract to make the Dickinson deal work. And so maybe the Hawks had leverage in saying, make it a first round pick and then we'll do it. And then obviously throwing in Colton Dach as well. He's kind of like he's a power forward type player, but I think Chicago has been a little bit disappointed in his lack of offensive upside. So he's a guy that will fit perfectly on a fourth line, be physical. I mean, he's led the team, the Blackhawks, in hits. I think he's among the top 5 in the NHL as well. So he's going to provide the physicality, but I think the Hawks were hoping that he'd be more of a top 9 player, power forward guy that can score a little bit more offensively, and he hasn't been able to do that. And so I think the Hawks were ready to kind of move on, open up a spot for somebody else, and obviously Stan Bowman knows him well, having drafted him with the Blackhawks in the second round.
He knows all these guys really well. I mean, Connor Murphy was a Blackhawk forever, and I know there was a scrum with Connor Bedard that was making the rounds on Twitter of just kind of how upset he seemed at the loss of Connor Murphy. But how big was he in the room?
Massive. I mean, he was essentially the Blackhawks like de facto captain when Kane and Taves ended up leaving. And so Connor Murphy is like, he honestly doesn't need to wear a letter on his sweater. You just gravitate towards him as a guy that's the leader and a voice inside that locker room regardless. And, the thing that has impressed me the most about Connor Murphy is that in his 9 years with the Blackhawks, and you can probably even predate it, the 4 years when he was with the Coyotes, 13-year NHL career, dude hasn't sniffed the playoffs outside of that bubble when the Hawks got wedged in there as the 12 seed. And not once did you hear Connor Murphy complain about his situation. Like, he was always committed to wanting to do whatever it took to help the Blackhawks get to the next step. And he had every reason to complain about, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't why I signed a long-term extension here with the Blackhawks. And he didn't do that, always wanting to be the solution for getting the Blackhawks to the next step. So with Murphy, I mean, you're getting a guy that you'll see, you're going to gravitate towards him in the locker room. really hard to play against. There's not a ton of offensive upside there, but I don't think Edmonton needs offensive upside from him. I think they really just need the penalty killing and the defensive minded attributes. And he's also a guy that is not going to be afraid to drop the gloves. Like he can throw them too. So he'll be hard to play against for opposing forwards.
I'm curious over his time with the Hawks. Is there like a style of partner that he's maybe excelled with? Like we're having the debate of like, all right, does he fit better with, Darnell Nurse, who's someone who skates well, maybe doesn't pass the puck well, kind of gets lost in his own end a lot? Is he better with a pure puck mover like Wallman? Did he have a lot of success with one specific Hawk in the past?
Yeah, I would say he's definitely better with a puck moving defenseman where he can just focus primarily on his defensive responsibilities. When he is kind of paired with another shutdown defenseman, it has worked in the past with Connor Murphy, like getting paired with another shutdown, but there's not going to be really any offensive upside to it. So I think he does well. Like this year, he's played primarily with Matt Grzelcyk, who's another veteran, and I think they've worked well together because, they both kind of have been around the NHL, but Grzelcyk is more of a puck mover and Murphy is more of the defensive-minded defenseman. And I will say this too, like Murphy started off the year playing on the third pairing. And so if you look at his average ice time, you look at maybe the 16-minute range, and maybe that kind of should potentially scare Oilers fans. Like, is he not a second pairing guy? But from January and on, or maybe even late December and on, like he was averaging 18, 19, 20 minutes a night. So he started off more on the third pairing, really elevated himself back into a second pairing role. So I believe he'll be pretty well equipped to handle that second pairing with Jake Wallman.
I think I would assume too his minutes kind of vary just based off who is in the lineup for Chicago, in the sense of like, okay, like we probably want to give Leshunov more minutes tonight, or Rinzel's in the lineup. Was that kind of the case too, why it was a bit of a vary?
Yeah, exactly. And I probably should have prefaced it by saying the first two Blackhawks games, it was maybe the first three games, the Hawks, it was the second game the Hawks ended up healthy scratching Artem Levshunov. And after that, I think the Hawks realized they want to put him in more offensive situation. So from the fourth game and on through December, the Hawks ended up going with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. And that also ate away at Murphy's consistent minutes. So that's why he was more on the low end of the minutes. But he's certainly a guy I would feel very comfortable if I was running Edmonton to slot him in as a second pairing. Like, I don't think he's out of place in that role.
Do you think the Hawks are done now? Do you see them doing anything else? Or are they kind of in a spot too where it's like, we kind of need some money on the Bucks, and also we need some money on the Bucks for next season too?
Yeah, so much money.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Nick Foligno is one of the guys that's moved. I know, I think Aaron Portzline of The Athletic has been mentioning a potential reunion with Columbus. It kind of feels to me like it's either Columbus or bust for Nick Foligno. And we actually just spoke to him like about an hour and a half ago after practice. And he definitely spoke like someone that was using more of a past tense verbiage, like as the possibility that he could be moved before tomorrow's trade deadline. And I wonder if this could probably be his last year in the NHL. So maybe he is kind of wrestling with, if this is my last year, let me go just chase a Stanley Cup and play some meaningful hockey. And I think Columbus has the cap space to do it. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a move that gets made between now and tomorrow.
Isn't so much of a deadline question as it is a look ahead for the Hawks, but like they got their answer in Spencer Knight. They have a blue line that you alluded to is just littered with young players. Like everyone under contract or team control next year is below 25 on that blue line right now. And then you have a forward group that obviously, everyone knew Connor Bedard was going to be great to some extent, but I think this year, especially for people outside Chicago, is kind of cemented like, oh yeah, that's a superstar level player. So what's Kyle Davidson got to do here as we head into this summer? How do you want to see him kind of supplement this roster and round things out?
Yeah, I think the last couple years in Chicago have been mainly about adding some veterans to be used as stopgaps for the younger players, just buy some time for them to develop. But as we go into next year, we're going to see number 3 overall pick Anton Frundell likely be a full-time NHL player. Nick Lardis, who's in Rockford right now, will probably be a full-time player. Roman Kanserov, who's he's been performing at an unbelievable level in the KHL. I'm not sure how much you guys are following, but he's like shattering what Kirill Kaprizov did and some of the other like Russian forwards in the AHL. In the KHL. So he's been fantastic. I expect him to be a full-time NHL player next year. But I do think that Kyle Davidson is ready to pull the trigger on something big if it makes sense for the Blackhawks in the long term. Like, I don't think he's collecting all these first round picks in 2028 because he's planning on using those first round picks on more players. Like, I think he's collecting them because he's like, if there's a guy that becomes available, maybe not a Robert Thomas, but a Robert Thomas type player in the next couple years, like, I think Kyle would really want to start pushing his chips in that would make sense, that would line up with the long-term trajectory of the Blackhawks. So we'll see what happens. I don't think that's going to happen, obviously, this year. Maybe this summer. I doubt it. I think probably looking more the summer of 2027 and beyond.
That's fair. I mean, the other thing Chicago's always going to have working for them is it's a destination. Like, it's a big city. Guys want to play there. Like, they could do their damage on the trade market, and I totally get the perspective of, like, I mean, look at all these picks. When you have this many picks and you also already have such a strong pipeline, like, at some point you're doing a disservice to your system to use them. Like, this was the debate with Utah for a long time. They just traded 3 second-rounders yesterday, but, like, at some point there's just too many prospects and not everybody can develop the right way. Like, you need to start moving on from these, or maybe you need to move picks and also get in on the free agent market, which they should be more than capable of doing.
Right. And that's actually one of the reasons why at last year's draft, the Blackhawks, Kyle Davidson even admitted, he's like, I kind of overpaid to get back into the back half of the first round to take a guy like Mason West. He's like, we have all these draft picks. I just wanted to kind of take a home run swing and leverage the draft picks that they have to maybe go out and get a Mason West who's 6'6", really skilled, like has like the Tage Thompson type makeup. And like, if he ends up, becoming half of the player that Tage Thompson is, well, then it was obviously worth it for the Blackhawks. And so I'm right there with you. Like, I don't think Davidson is amassing all these draft picks because he plans on using every single one. Like, there's a strategy to him doing so and eventually wanting to flip some of those assets for impact type players that fit the long-term rebuild of the Blackhawks.
You can compare him to Tage Thompson all you want. If you put the two of them in front of me and said, one of them's got to get you a first down on a 3rd and 6, I know which one of the two. It's not Tage. Charlie, this was awesome. Thank you so much for popping on. Appreciate your time, and we'll chat again soon.
No problem. I will be watching closely Edmonton Oilers games, and I think you guys got 2 good ones in Dickinson and Murphy, so it should be a fun playoff to watch for you guys.
Perfect. Awesome. And we'll have Charlie back on tomorrow when the Oilers acquire Ilya Mikheyev, and they just finish this whole thing off. All right. See you, Charlie.
See ya. Thank you.
See you guys.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you enjoyed today's episode of Oilers Nation Every Day, make sure you hit the subscribe button here on our YouTube to not miss any of our content. We got you covered, from interviews, insight, analysis, everything you need to stay up to date on everything around the team. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a video.